Hey, everybody. Doing all right?
What did Luke Altmaier show you throughout the training camps that solidified his spot to start?
Well, I think he was really consistent from dating back to spring. He's got a very a real strong desire and passion to learn the game. Like, he's really into the football part of things. Like, he's a football junkie, and that shows up all the time. Always thinking, always asking, watching film in the office, in the building constantly. Which is what you want in the quarterback. And all of our guys have a good way of studying and going about learning. But he really loves the game, and he performed very well in the practices that we've had him through spring and fall camp. So I think he earned the job.
Coach, Toledo's been doing what they do defensively for a number of years now. Is it unique to what you'll face this year, and what are some challenges for your offense?
Yeah, sure. I think there is some unique qualities to it. Of course, you don't know what. We don't know what they've studied and what they've manipulated over the summer, just like they don't know what we've, studied and manipulated over the summer either. But I think from a, systematically speaking of what they have been and what's been so successful for them, it is a little bit of a unique prep in the way they kind of play their back end. And so they're very good at it. I mean, as you would expect from a conference champion team, they know how to play their defense. They have a lot of the answers built into their defense and have a lot of respect for the way they're coaching and playing on that side of the ball.
What kind of buy-in is required for your running backs to understand it's going to be kind of a split operation back there instead of having one back? Or what do they need to understand that?
Oh, I think they understand it very well. I think all of our backs understand things. Thad's done a fantastic job of mentoring them as players and as young men off the field as well. And I think that room's in a really good spot. I think in particular, the top two guys, with Reggie and Josh, I think that they understand that it's going to be a series rotation, a quarter rotation, whatever that rotation looks like. It's going to take both of them. It's going to take a village at that position, including the other two guys that we anticipate being involved in the game plan. So I think I really like where they're at as far as just mentally, and I really like where they're at physically. I'm excited to watch those guys share the load and the run and the pass game for us going into Saturday.
Reggie Love has gained some experience, and this kind of big opportunity for him. What have you seen from him throughout this offseason? What's he bring to the offense?
Super consistent, a great attitude. I think he elevates the people around him with his attitude. He's just got a way about him, and so when he loves football. And the thing about Reggie, and we said this last year a lot, is that no matter when his opportunity came, even though it was limited on a limited scale last year, partly due to health, partly due because of the workload that we put on our back last year, is when he had the opportunities, he really injected a lot of positive things into our offense, running the ball. I mean, he had some really critical runs last year and in critical moments when he was relieving Chase. And so I'm excited about him because he's proven very trustworthy, very steadfast, and I think his mentality and his demeanor has helped Josh's game as well. So I think that tandem there is in a healthy place.
How has that receiver room beyond those three returners kind of evolved since we last spoke with you, I think, after the scrimmage?
Yeah, I think just every day. I mean, literally, you got a lot of young players there, right? Malik and Ashton and Sean and even Alex, Hank. I mean, you got when you look at you got the three guys that have played a lot of football, right? And then beyond that, you've got a lot of youth that's got talent and that are getting better every day and that is developing rapport with our quarterbacks. And so, again, at that position, it's going to take a village. We're going to need more than 3 or 4 guys playing around there. And I think we're at a point where a lot of those young guys have elevated themselves into being not just developmental young guys, into guys that we anticipate being in the game on Saturday and fully trusting them when they are in the game.
It does seem like there's an opportunity for some long plays, some explosive plays. Is that something that just happens, or is it something that you game plan for, just kind of looking to take a big shot?
Both. I mean, I think explosive plays happen through both. I mean, great football plays usually are a result of great fundamentals. If the scheme is sound and the fundamentals that you teach and apply are sound, and you have good players like we do, then that sometimes naturally creates an explosive play. Now, this defense is very stingy about giving them up. They're very methodical in the way they go about their defensive scheme. So then part of it is the scheme related. Is there an opportunity to create an explosive play via the scheme? And we're hoping to be able to create both Saturday night, both through execution and potentially through scheme.
What do you need from Luke Altmaier as he makes his first start for you guys?
Yeah.
What's your message to him?
Yeah, first start for us, and I think really only maybe the second start, right, and third or fourth game that he's played in. So, it's that sometimes I have to step back and look through that lens and remind myself that even though he presents himself as a very experienced, mature player, he's experienced in every facet of the sense except actual playing. And I think there's validity to that, and there's good in that. And so I think the biggest thing for him is in any of our quarterback. I mean, Tommy went through this last year's first game here. Is, man, there's going to be nerves, there's going to be excitement. Those are good things. Those are good feelings, and you just gotta harness those and channel those into playing within the scheme. Right? We got enough people. We got an O-line, tight ends, running backs. We got people around you that are here to support you and to do their jobs, and me as a play caller to help support him. He doesn't have to go out and play outside of the scheme of the offense. And so I think if he goes in and trusts what we're asking him to do, I think he'll settle in nicely.
The right side of your offensive line just kind of worked through several different guys there, partly with Zai, unavailable a little bit. Has that side kind of solidified as you head into the
We're getting closer, and obviously, that some of that's day to day. When we talk about maybe the final picture there, and but I think one of the good things that comes out of camps when when you have guys that they're banged up, miss a day, which is the way of life, especially up front in college football camp, or maybe we're trying to arrest a guy that's proven his value and knows how to play winning football. Maybe we're arresting a guy, so now all of a sudden you're changing that order up. You're mixing and matching who the left guard is, who the right guard is, and those provide great opportunities for you to work on your chemistry. And so I think that's been one of the benefits of the way we've rotated some in the fall is I think we got them comfortable with no matter who's at next to Kreutz, at right guard or left guard or right tackle. And I think those guys have been really consistent. And so obviously we'd like to be able to get solidified to where it is a constant group of playing together, because the more they play together, better off we'll be. But early on there in the season, I think we probably anticipate 6 or 7 offensive linemen playing in the game, similar to what we did early in the part last year. But so a little bit of a work in progress in that regard, but I do like where we're at on the right side and the left.
I think Julian and Isaiah both said is like last year you had your 6 pretty much that play, but they feel like there's maybe more guys this year that can go in if needed.
Sure.
Do you kind of have that
Yeah, I think so. I think that's something that we're always pressing and working towards. And I think that there's been some guys emerge from camp that have taken a step forward that you could certainly feel very comfortable with being in the full scale of a game plan.
Have you been more comfortable heading into year 2 as opposed to year 1? And if you sense the guys are more comfortable with you and getting more out of them and what you want?
Yeah, for sure. Way more comfortable, and not in a way that I'm, too comfortable. I mean, you got to grow, but as far as being in this chair, in this seat, year 2, working under Coach B now for going on my 7th year, and working with a lot of the coaches that came back, a lot of the play. I mean, yeah, you see a lot of the residual effects of that when we go to practice. And maybe we put in a special situation, that last year would have been brand new. And now this year it's just, oh yeah, that's what we call that at the end of the game, and we're able to execute it. That's like a microcosm a little bit of kind of the big picture things of the comfort level. Like I think just the terminology, the situational anticipation, what the players expect from me and meetings and practice, like all that has grown in year 2 as it should have. And so I'm excited to take that, the off the field stuff, the off season stuff, and now let's let that come to life when we start our season here that we're looking forward to doing on Saturday.
You said there's been an emphasis, especially early on red zone offense. How do you feel like you guys have evolved from last year going into this opening?
Well, I mean, I feel at this point we've done very well in that regard. I mean, I think we've established maybe a little clear identity about what we're trying to accomplish down there. I mean, obviously we know we're trying to score. I mean, I don't need anybody second guessing whether I understand that that's our goal down there. But I'm talking about from a structural standpoint, like what are we trying to accomplish? How are we trying to do it to maximize our volume of reps on those things schematically? I feel very comfortable with where we're at. Now we got to go execute. I got to put our guys in the right situation and the right time. Timing is a lot of it to do with calling it. And then we have to be able to execute there at a high level. And that's going to be a premium not just Saturday, but all year long. We've got to get better in that area. It's been a big point of emphasis for us, and I'm excited to see the works that we've done in the spring and the summer and the fall hopefully come to life when we play Saturday.
What's Isaiah Williams give your offense, just in terms of his versatility and big play capability?
Yeah, he's a great tool to work with. You know, I mean, he can do so many different things. You know, he can run the ball, he can catch the ball, he can throw the ball. You know, I mean, he's and he knows the offense extremely well. He can play X, Z, F, Y, tailback, quarter. I mean, that's a fun guy to have. And obviously, you throw in that he's semi-talented, that works out pretty well as well. You know, so obviously incredibly talented, incredibly gifted. And hopefully he's going to have a great impact on our offense, a greater impact than what he had last year.
What you want to do tempo-wise, Barry, I don't know if we'll get a clear picture until maybe the end of the month, but with the new rule change on clock doesn't stop for first downs, I know you've been able to work it, but do you have any thoughts on how that changes what you want to do from a tempo standpoint or how you want to call a game?
I don't really think that's going to affect me as a play caller to a large degree. I'm kind of, this has kind of been a little bit of the narrative. I've been reading some articles just like from a national landscape about this, about what other coaches are saying about it, and there's a mixed bag there, and I would kind of fall in the middle of that. You know, it's certainly going to have an impact, but it shouldn't directly affect strategically how I'm calling it, when I'm calling it. Probably at the end of the day, you're going to get a few less plays, and so which would put maybe a little bit more of a premium if you're trying to create fatigue, if you're trying to create an advantage by playing tempo, that you might have to be more intentional about using those earlier in the game because maybe just the volume of reps are going to be minimized. I think that's pretty hard to argue against that it won't. So I'm anxious to see the turnout of that as well. But going into the first game, that's not a big thought in the front of my mind about how that's going to manipulate or impact the way I'm calling it.
Just one more about the running backs.
Yeah.
If I could say you're comfortable with the two guys behind you, who's kind of stepped into that next level?
Yeah, I would say that like Aiden and Caden, are the guys that right now that we would say going into this first game certainly could have an impact in the game plan. So those guys have both continued to gotten better and better. Really excited kind of where they're. I mean, it's such coach speak, but really truly like we are very excited about where those two guys are heading and how they're coming along.
What's the vibe of week one for you guys?
Well, I mean, I think it's excitement, right? I mean, like we practiced last night under the lights, and it's a night game, so like I think everybody's blood was pumping. Like, oh, it's here, like you work. It's a unique sport. It's a unique business in that regard that we put a lot of time and effort, like everybody else does across the country, like the high school teams do across the country, the junior high teams. They work year round. Summer, springs, falls, and you get 12. In high school, you get 10, and so you get 10 opportunities. And so that's an exciting time of the year when the fruits of the labor are going to, or at least on the forefront, on the horizon, to where now you get an opportunity to go do what you do all that work for.
So good?
Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir, Barry.
Hope y'all got easy questions for me. Coach Lunney, all the hard ones. How y'all doing? Good afternoon.
Well, Coach, you face a dual-threat quarterback. What are some of the challenges facing a guy like that who can impact the game in so many different ways?
That's funny you asked that. I'm not sure who keeps me up longer at night, my new twin girls or DeQuan Finn, man. He's a very, very special player. You can see why they've had success with a guy like that who can throw it, he can run it. He's extremely special. He's obviously vital to their offense and what they do. And I just have a lot of respect for that coaching staff as well. Coach Candle, he's done a tremendous job in his time there, and they were the MAC champs for a reason, right? And so I think anytime you're facing a dual quarterback like this, obviously we got to try to contain them. Like that's the most important thing, to try to contain them, right? Limit the explosive plays. They have playmakers on the outside that could play in this conference, and so they want to be explosive, and we have to do the best we can to limit that.
Who rose to the competition in your safety battle?
Okay, pardon me?
Who rose to the competition?
Well, I'm still in the process of making those decisions. The guys that are in the running for it, you got Mac Resetich, you got Miles Scott, you got Nicario Harper, you got Clayton Bush, and you got Demetrius Hill. Like those have been the guys who have been they've been truly standing out, and I'm all the way up until Thursday. It's going to be a battle. And so I've been trying to obviously prep all these young men for the game and just put them in the right positions. But I think at the end of the day, right, like it's been fall. We've been working ourselves through fall camp and now transitioning to Toledo this week, and it's been a good battle. Been a really good battle. The guys, they've encouraged each other. They've helped each other. Matt Bailey has taken Coach Bailey, I like to call him, has taken a significant role in the room and coaching up a lot of these newer guys in our system, our scheme, and whoever we end up going with to start the game, that doesn't mean that they're going to be the starter for week 2 or week 3 or week 4. We all know the story of Kirby Joseph. His final year, he didn't start it, I think, until week 3 or 4, and he obviously ended up having a great season. And so I'm challenging these dudes every single day to just, if you're not the starter, to be ready when your opportunity is presented.
Miles, what did he show as a receiver that made you want to move him over a safety? How did you able to make that transition?
Well, I think the first thing is just his ball skills. I think when you talk about defensive back play, right, old adages, right, a lot of coaches like to convert wide receivers who can't catch into DBs. And I think here we try to flip that mindset a little bit. I mean, Miles has tremendous hands, and just the way he moved in workouts, the way he ran around, his size, his stature, when you go to look at a room, especially a room full of offensive guys, just naturally as a defensive coach, you're like, oh, he can play defense. He can play defense. He can play defense. And Miles was just one of those guys that stood out. I mean, we had been kind of lobbying for this since last year, and Coach B thought he was coming along at the wide receiver position. Obviously, Coach McDonald did as well, and I just think in this day and time and transitioning him to DB, we felt like it was the coach always talks about putting the team first. We felt like it was the best thing for our team and the best thing for that young man, and he's really flourished in it.
The way you guys are talking about Xavier Scott, kind of reminiscent of how you talked a little bit about Quan last year. What have you seen from Xavier Scott?
I didn't want to share all those beans with you, but yes, Xavier Scott's special. Xavier Scott is extremely special. Xavier Scott has a chance to be as good as he wants to be. He has some tools that some of them are just God-given. He has the ability to line up at truly any position in the secondary. He's a very intelligent kid. I think, anytime when you're going out to recruit a young man, right, you look for those innate tools to be able to lead, and you love young men who play multiple sports. And Xavier was a multiple sport guy, extremely competitive. I can remember going to a high school basketball practice and just watching him run up and down the court, right, and watch the way he communicated, watch how he led, watch how intense he was just during practice. And you transition now to him being in college, and he lost none of that. It's actually been elevated, and so I know oftentimes we look at stature as coaches. We want them to be 6'3", we want to be this, we want to be that, and at the end of the day, do they have dog in them? And you saw that from that high school basketball practice, right? And now we've been seeing it here, and so I'm really excited for the young man. Obviously, he had some ups and downs last year, which I think is going to propel him into this year. We're just extremely excited for what's ahead for him.
What does Tyreek give you at that Mike linebacker position, and how important is his ability to communicate more than anything else?
Tariq Barnes is probably one of the most underrated players in the country. First of all, he's lightning fast. He can run with the best of them. I'm not so sure he couldn't play DB, to be completely honest with you. That's how fast he is. He's highly intelligent, like highly intelligent. He can see things before they happen, right? He has great play anticipation, and he has tremendous versatility. In our defensive system, sometimes Tariq is on the line of scrimmage, and we ask him to play from the line of scrimmage. Sometimes he's a true cylinder Mike linebacker. And just his ability to lead, his ability to put his face on you. I mean, you talk about looking for a linebacker, like the standard of your program, like that's what you want. That's what you want to go out and recruit, right? Like he has it. He has it. And I think what ultimately makes him special is his ability to lead when it's hard. And that may involve getting in people's faces, but I think he's commanded the the command of the locker room, and I think he's built relationships with our coaching staff and our players, that he understands that this is the last ride for him, and so he wants to make it his best. And I can tell you this: when he leaves, I'm gonna be sad, right? Because I think he's a very, very special player.
It seems like the outside backers are kind of in the spotlight against this type of offense. Is that a position where you feel like you got some advantage athletically and maybe size-wise?
Well, I mean, I would tell you, yeah, but that quarterback, I mean, he makes all the wrongs right. You know, like no matter what happens, right? Like even if you do beat the tackles, which they have really, really good offensive linemen as well, right? They got to tackle up for the Outland Trophy. I mean, they got a really good front. And so even if you do beat those guys, now you got to catch the quarterback, right? And so, like, I think our outside backers are extremely talented, right? I think they obviously give us they give us the ability to run around and play in space defensively, and I love what they do. But man, we haven't faced a quarterback like this yet. In my time here, we haven't faced a quarterback. We face guys who can run, but this guy can hit his head on a goalpost if he breaks free, right? If you watch the Ohio State game, Ohio State got a bunch of really good players on their roster, and I mean he looked like he was in a video game, right? He's running around, scrambling, shot down the field for a touchdown. Like he did that multiple times, you know what I'm saying? And so I think at the end of the day, we just got to we have to make sure, even if we are able to beat our man, like we got to understand our job description and our duty, and that's to contain the quarterback.
Input or banter does Johnny have when you guys prep for his brother?
Man, you know how Johnny is, man. Johnny is one of a kind, right? Like obviously Johnny loves his brother. He cares about his brother. But to him, it's a competition, you know. And just like how cool is it for his family to be able to come up here and witness this moment for him, right? Like mother and father, they're going to have two of their sons on the field competing against each other. Like it's going to be a really cool environment for him and his family and his brother, you know. But Johnny could be lining up against his brother, or he can be lining up against an NFL offensive tackle. He's going to have the same mindset, right? He's competitive as all get out. He's violent. He's physical, and he wants to show his peers as well as the rest of the country how talented he is, and he wants to put it on display. And so whether it was his brother on the opposite side or anybody else, we're going to get the best out of Johnny. So that's what I'm really excited about.
How much do you guys need a game and another opponent defensively to figure out who you really are, and how much are you ready for a game?
Well, we were ready for a game a week ago. You know, this time last year we played in week 0, and kind of looking at the calendar a little bit from last year, we were kind of chomping at the bit. But, you know, I think that, you know, early on, especially the first game of the season, there's always going to be things that you need to work on, things that you can improve on. That they say, like, the biggest improvements come from week 1 to week 2, you know. And so, like, watching the games from this past weekend, we pulled out a lot of clips just to teach situational football to our players, right? We got a bunch of young guys on our roster. They're just casually watching football, you know, and just for all the young DBs out there, right? Like Caleb Williams at USC had a clip where he bobbled a snap, right? The ball hit the ground. You watched San Jose State secondary just run forward when the ball hit the ground because they assumed that it was going to be a fumble. He was going to kick it, right? Well, when they ran forward, the wide receivers ran down the field and they were wide open, right? So, like, I know that if you're in coverage, you should stay in coverage, but maybe Sabor Kareem, who just got done with high school, or Jaheim Clark, right, or Prince Ford, right, or Caleb Patterson, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they don't truly understand that. So to teach them that in a classroom setting, this is why we don't leave our man. If you're a middle of the field defender, this is why we don't leave our man. And so I think we're more than ready to play. I'm really excited about the opportunity to play. Will there be some things that come up that we have to get adjusted and get fixed? 100%. 100%, right? And the goal is to be better the following week. But I think at the end of the day, you know, you always try to learn from those moments, and hopefully none of those moments be the reason that you lose.
Back at someone like Xavier and Tyler Strand, who got all those snaps, not only in the game, but like kind of the heat of the Big Ten West race. How much can that leapfrog them?
That was, right, like that was extremely vital, right? I can remember going into last season, I wrote everybody's name on the board, right? Just like in the order in which I saw them, you know, being in the room, right? Obviously, Spoon was at the top of that list. And I just challenged the room at some point in time, right, when you least expect it, somebody towards the bottom half of this list is going to be called upon. Well, some guys who was at the bottom half of that list was Tyler Strain and Xavier Scott, right? Xavier Scott started versus the number 3 team in the country, right? Tyler Strain was thrown into a game versus Purdue, right? He ended up suffering an injury, right? But then comes Xavier Scott. And so I'm just challenging our young players and some of our transfer guys who haven't been on this stage. At the end of the day, it's still football, but I'm challenging them. If you are not considered the starter, I actually did this yesterday. If you are not considered the starter, yeah, be mad, be upset. That's fine. That's human emotion. I totally understand that. You guys are young men, right? Everybody wants to go out there and take the first snap. I get it, but you better be ready, because the way this Big Ten season, or the way this season kind of rolls out, I have yet in my Big Ten career as a player and or coach, or when I was coaching the SEC, I have yet, right, to have whoever the starters was, have them finish the whole season without nobody missing a game or nobody getting dinged up. It happens every single year. And so just trying to prepare these young men mentally, right? Because we live in a world now where if you ain't a starter, guys want to leave and transfer, right? Well, all we doing is setting them up for failure in life, right? What happens when you're a father? You just can't transfer, right, from fatherhood, right? Like it's a big, big responsibility. And so, like, just trying to teach these young men, you can't just run away from your problems. Sometimes you got to face them and deal with them. Now, I get the situation where guys do transfer. I get it. Right? Maybe you've been at a place for 2-3 years and you're not playing as much as you would like, right? You can go down to a lower level or another level, right, to have an opportunity to play. But I think what we're trying to preach to our young men here at the University of Illinois is, like, we're going to face some adversity. Like, that is innately a part of all of our DNA as humans. We're going to face it. But when we face it, right, do we run from it or do we run to it? Not to go on my soapbox, but I get kind of pumped up now.
Takeaways were a big part of the success last year, obviously one of the leaders in the country. And I know turnovers are hard to predict, but does this group have that same mentality of wanting to get the ball back and being aggressive about it?
Absolutely. You know, that's been a point of emphasis for us in the offseason. Like, I think we had like 26 interceptions and we scored 1 time on defense, right? I know we had a fumble recovery, but I'm just talking about the interception standpoint. We ended up scoring 2 times total. But I think if you can turn those takeaways into touchdowns, you got yourself a different ball game, right? You also have yourself a different season. So the point of emphasis this offseason has been not only just taking the ball away, right? I think we've established that we can take the ball away. But once we take the ball away, can we get to the box, as the young boys say, right? Can we get to the end zone, right? Can we get to the end zone? Like, that's the goal. That's the purpose, try to get to the end zone. But, right, I think this team that we're playing against, the MAC champs, in Toledo, I think they do a great job at making sure teams don't take the ball away, right? They do a great job on the perimeter, right? They do a great job there. I mean, their running back is extremely special. They got a bunch of skill guys. It's obviously going to be a challenge for us, but I think our guys will be ready for it.
How does Tyler Strain kind of play around his lack of size, quite frankly, and use that to his advantage, or just play up to that?
Right. So, like, I think when you have naturally when you have DBs who are a little smaller, they just pack a different punch. Maybe they're wired a little different, right? So Taz Nicholson, real name is Tavion. They call him Taz for a reason, right? He look crazy, right? He look crazy, right? We don't have that name for Strain, right? But his last name is Strain for a reason, right? Like he although he's small in stature, he gonna give you all he got. He's extremely physical player, you know, and for what we ask him to do from a job description standpoint, he does a tremendous job at it. You know, I think for what some of our guys lack in size, they make up for it in heart, the way they study the game, the way they study their opponent, the respect they have for their opponent, you know, and like, we know some guys are going to be a little smaller, some guys are going to be a little taller, some guys are going to be a little wider. And so it's just when the ball snaps, can you show that physicality, right? Can you just put it on tape at the end of the day? And so I'm definitely excited for Strain, although he'll tell you he's 5'10", 5'9", right, and some change. But I just think what he brings to the table, just he's also the fastest player on our team, right? Like, he's lightning fast. Like, the guy can run, you know. And so he may not be the 6'3" guy that most teams look for, but he makes up for that in a whole bunch of other areas.
Good? Okay. Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, man. Have a good one.
starting kickers to try to keep Ohio State off its game.
Last week, we have a quarterback.
That's how they vote for kicker too.
I was just happy he announced that they do have a kicker. I mean, that's good to know. There's a part of me that wants to go, okay, well, Indiana's not going to go for 2. Good enough. Not a bad idea.
Big if true.
Thank you, sir. But if you can't make 3, guess what? 2, 4, 0. I can't wait for you to come up with that shirt stuff. 3, 1, 2, 2, 4, 0.
Keep shooting 30 meters. I can probably find one.
The locker room, well.
I don't know that they
Don't think the locker room. Hate to spell my own girl.
I enjoy the hell out of it all.
Made the season way more.
All right, Coach, we head up. Start off with a statement.
Yes, obviously excited to get to game week. A lot of build up and a lot of things from last spring, to go through the spring, to go through the summer, to go through fall camp. Couldn't be more excited. I know as a head coach going to my 15th year, every season just a little bit different, but these guys have really been a joy to work with. The new additions, we had 40 guys going to fall camp that had never been with us through a fall camp. We probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, 25 guys that will take their first snaps as Illinois football players on Saturday night. And a lot of that goes into, obviously their preparation, how they do things, but now to get it all coordinated and kind of play in a way that you need to play to beat a team like Toledo. Toledo's a very good football team, obviously picked to win the MAC again. And Coach Candle has done a tremendous job ever since he took over and has won more games in that league than anybody else. So a very difficult task in front of us. One I think our guys are excited to play. From a medical standpoint, obviously, it said Matt Bailey, and then the only other guy, Zeke Holmes, probably will not be with us on Saturday night. He's continued to get back and put himself in a position, but we're kind of pushing a pause button for him and just kind of letting that kind of get back underneath him. But he's been practicing with us last 2 or 3 weeks. Just had a conversation with him last night to take a pause, see where we're at after a couple weeks and see where we go. So only other thing is there's a couple, unfortunately, during fall camp, happened actually a couple weeks ago. We've known about it for a while, but 2 guys, ironically, from the same high school, Malachi Hood, unfortunately, just kind of a routine play, non-contact, was decelerating, and he suffered a popped Achilles tendon. So he was a guy that was kind of really on the bubble of whether he was going to be with us, had done a really good job of getting himself ready last spring, all winter, all summer, and had a really good preparation to get to where we are. And he was a guy kind of on that bubble travel roster. Has just been awesome to see his growth. So unfortunately, he won't be with us this fall. And then on the same high school football team, ironically, Jordan Anderson in our last scrimmage kind of came out of a run and put his foot down. Unfortunately, popped his ACL, so he actually is in a rehab to get himself ready. Malachi's already had surgery. Everything went great. We're waiting for Jordan to kind of get himself in a position, and then he will he'll start his rehab process. Unfortunately for those guys, both of them redshirted last year, so excited to get them out there this year, but obviously we'll have to wait another year to see that kind of play out. So really that's it. Been very fortunate, I think, all spring and all summer and all fall camp to have a limited amount of guys miss with that time. Zai is cleared. Zai will be back with us Tuesday at practice and shouldn't have anything moving forward with him. He's been great. A couple other guys with some nicks and bruises should be full go for Tuesday's practice. We actually went under the lights last night. Probably had one of our better practices of the year. Just guys are really crisp, flying around, clean. Really excited what I saw last night. We'll hit the practice field Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday and see where we go. So with that, open it up for questions.
No quarterback questions, but the availability list you're going to have submit a couple hours before the game. Big Ten just
Oh, the rule?
Yeah, what was your take? Did the coaches have a submit?
Yeah, kind of had that. I had a feeling that was kind of coming and trending in that direction. Really, since I came back into college football, when I was in the NFL, I was really amazed at the amount of volume of medical information that's released. But it's a different league up there, right? It's a business. There's certain protocols they got to follow all the way, starting back to during the game week. They got to submit reports to do some things during the course of the week. This one's just literally on game day, and I would say, as a rule of thumb, as coaches, we probably know by Thursday to Friday. There's always going to maybe be once in a couple times a season where there's a guy that might be marginal. For instance, last year, getting ready for the Indiana game, I remember Julian Pearl got rolled up 2 days before the game. Really, no one knew about it. At first, they told us he was going to be out 2 to 4 weeks, and then we literally had to test him right before the game. He almost played, and unfortunately, he missed that game, but he came back for us the next week. So really, even in my time here, I can't see where this would actually draw much attention other than the normal stuff. But yeah, we'll kind of work our way through that. It's something that came about in the last couple of weeks. It had been talked about for a couple of months, but on away games you travel 74. But what a lot of people don't realize is for home games you can only take 74 to the hotel. So it's already kind of a 74-man roster. So all I see is us, if there's somebody that's on that roster that may or not be involved, for the 2 reporting levels, I think they're going to have either someone out or someone that could be questionable. Probably just a little more red tape for us to work through, but it's probably something in the long run might be better, especially in this day and age with all the gambling going around and everything else. I think that's probably the driving force more than anything.
I think Brian Kelly has talked about doing what the NFL does and releasing something on Tuesday and Thursday as well. I mean, do you see it getting to that point?
I personally wouldn't, but I do think that we'll do is what the conference of Brian Kelly can do, whatever Brian Kelly wants to do. I think for us, even in our league, I know last year there were a couple teams that reported injuries, and I kind of was always just amazed at how that kind of came out. I understand the whole side the world is dealing with right now with gambling and all that goes into it, but for me, I just kind of would rather, if there's information out there, that's out there, but if it's not out there, I don't really want it out there, so it is what it is.
Running back, it looked like Jordan was kind of up in that top 3, top 4 in the times that we were able to come in. So Jordan Anderson, what's the ripple effect of him being out?
Well, you guys probably saw limited action in the fall, but he when we started fall camp, unfortunately, he also tweaked his back a little bit, was coming back, had just come back from that. So really, since we started fall camp, I would say by far Josh and Reggie have taken the majority of the reps with the ones. With the 2s and 3s, it kind of just rotated between Caden and Aiden, and then Jordan had worked his way back into it. Unfortunately, as soon as he got back in there, it was pop. So the good side is those 2 guys that are kind of that next group of guys to go in. I would tell you, if you asked our offensive players for sure, and probably our defensive guys, if anybody wants to see those freshmen take their first reps, I bet you a lot of people would vote between Caden Fagan, Malik Elzy, and Aiden Lawfrey. They're probably kind of a tie for those 3 guys to watch their first snap in college football.
What are some things that you may worry about a little bit more in week 1 than you will later on in the season?
So there were 7 FBS games this past weekend, 7 teams that played FBS teams, and I made an edit that I showed our guys yesterday, and I knew a lot of them probably had watched the Notre Dame game. That was the most publicized one. Obviously, the USC game was an Apple TV game, so you had to have that all set up. But I took the San Diego State game. I took the UMass game. I took the Jacksonville State game, and kind of just showed, and then the other big one, Vanderbilt versus Hawaii in the first quarter. There were 3 special teams things that really were a big impact in the game. Turnovers were huge. So I always take the world of college football to show our guys what they can do. So I think you just worry about those things, guys that haven't taken their first snaps. We have a new special teams coordinator. Dish has been an unbelievable breath of fresh air, just really some of the ideas, thoughts. I was really intrigued at his time in Georgia with the punt team. They've kind of done it differently than we've done it here. So with a 2-man shield, moving that, getting 3 flyers, that's a little different look. I think anything that involves, our defense and the changes since a year ago, right? There's going to be some strengths of of what we do up front. I think in the back end, there's some guys that have played a lot of good football, but I'm sure everybody's excited to see what the back end can bring. So they're just natural things in an opener that you always talk about.
What's unique about getting ready for a night game and then multiple night games?
Yeah, so 4 of our first 6, and then they're kind of just play the games as they play. So our last 2 week 0 games have been during the day, right? So that was what our first 2 preps, but we prepped a lot at night. So I don't think it's really any different. We practice in the morning now, but we're obviously in tune with what goes on. That we're going to play day games, night games. Penn State games already scheduled at noon. So I don't think for me as a head coach now going to my 15th year, the time of the game isn't such an important task as getting your guys ready to understand what that means, right? Like at night, here in Memorial Stadium, the effect of that stadium is a lot different than maybe next week when we go to Kansas. Just wind can be a factor here that is a little bit more significant. But I don't really see the time of the game being a factor, but more just get our guys ready. I thought we were really fast last night, and now we want to keep that. Our legs were fresh. Guys talk about how good they feel. I think we really want to have that be in full effect Saturday night.
In the week 0 games you were able to note, did you notice the first down rule playing an impact at all and how you guys prepare?
Yeah, I think it'll eliminate, what they did it for was they were trying to eliminate total volume of reps and make the game a little more consistent as far as length of time. In college football, you can get a game that's 2 hours and get a game that's 4.5 hours, right? And that makes it hard for the TV people to kind of manage it. But for us, we've really talked a lot about how that is going to change. They'll get conditioned to that clock isn't going to stop, and it's not really going to take effect, and it won't become a glaring to them until maybe like a 4-minute mark, the middle 8, and then especially when it clicks past that 2-minute 1:59 mark, it's gonna significantly. And you saw it, this past weekend. USC, I believe, got the ball with 1:35 in the first half, had all 3 timeouts. San Jose State had 2 timeouts, if not 3, and USC kind of stalled out, had a sack. They had burned 2 timeouts. One was the play clock was rolling down. One was the clock on the punt team on a backed up was running out. They had to burn 2 timeouts. San Jose State gets the ball on the 45-yard line, have a couple plays, then they hit a big second down shot, and they score, I believe, with less than 15 seconds and never use that 1 timeout. So there's some really good educational football out there if you want to take advantage of it, and hopefully we'll do that.
What kind of jumps out at you about Toledo on both sides of the ball?
Well, without a doubt, just the way they're coached. Coach Kendall, just very impressed. The success he's had, it doesn't come by chance. He's got really good players that play really good football. We always talk and preach about good football plays, the result of good fundamentals, and it screams on their film all over the place how well they're coached, how well they're disciplined. Offensively, there's no doubt Finn, like number 7, is a very dynamic, incredibly gifted athlete that makes good decisions with the ball. He's very effective on early downs. He can make something special on any given play. I always say that the greatest value of a great quarterback is someone who can make something of nothing. And sometimes the answer isn't always clear, and then he makes something that isn't there. And he's very, very difficult to defend in that regards. They got perimeter players. They got a couple wide receivers that are very gifted. They got a running back that's very dynamic. They got an Outland Trophy watch list person up front. On the defense side of the ball, on the perimeter especially, they got a couple really good DBs, a safety, a corner that are exceptional. They got an active middle linebacker. Special teams, they've actually had a transition as well. Their special teams coordinator came from South Carolina and had been at Kansas State. So just to learn and study and watch him over the last several stops he's had has been pretty impressive. So not really one thing that you got to, say just one thing. They're just extremely very talented. They got, I believe they have somewhere close to the same number of players up for national award lists that we have, which is very impressive. And to watch those guys play, it's going to be a tremendous task in front of us right away.
Reggie played last year, Reggie Love. What does this opportunity mean for him, and what's he bring to you guys?
Reggie and Josh both, I think the neat thing for me is just the growth they've had from a year ago. I think both those guys last year going into the year were kind of battling for that spot behind Chase, and unfortunately both of them kind of had some injury setbacks during the course of the year. Josh, got the knee bruise early. As soon as he got healthy, he got tangled up over on the sideline. Reggie kind of had a couple things pop up during the course of the year. Obviously, Chase had an exceptional year. So I think those two guys, knowing and owning where they started last winter, jumping into the spring, obviously a new coach in Thad. I've bragged a lot about the 4 coaches I've hired. Just Thad in his presence, his knowledge of the game, his understanding, his ability to coach. Like, I think it's really taken those two players, especially, to a different level than they've been at, and really impressive to watch that happen. And then obviously the real tell, come Saturday. What's been really fun for me, and I know Thad's aware of it, and Barry and I were talking during the course of the spring. And then during the summer, when we kind of it's just the interaction between those two. They both cheer for one another. They both, push each other, but also understand the value in those two knowing what's going on, because they literally give feedback all the time. And I'm excited to see this work out on game day.
Can you compare your comfort level now to, as opposed to opener 2 years ago, opener last year? Do you have a reference there for you?
Bob, I get the question, but to me, it's literally every year is just a little bit different, right? Like, we have three quarterbacks that none of them have played a snap for Illinois football, right? Like, that's even though BP going into my first year had been a multi-game starter, right? You just have that comfort level with someone you've been in there with. Now, what I am excited about, right? I do think our guys have worked very hard. They're very diligent. The work they put in with Tank to be in condition where they are, for us to play the way we played. Through spring, summer, and fall, and to have as few injuries just tells me they think the right way. But until the bullets start flying, it really, each season is kind of the same. I'm not going to be surprised by certain things I'm going to see, right? There's going to be a really good play, and we can't get too high. And there's going to be a really bad play, and we can't get too low. We got to handle adversity. As coaches, we got to handle the moment we're living in. Excited to watch our guys respond, excited to watch our coaches respond. And we have a unique challenge this week, right? And believe me, there is nothing more we've focused on the last 10 days in Toledo, right? But as soon as that game's done, we really got to turn the page very quickly, because Kansas is a short week without a day off. So, once you jump into the season, it's all bars are set and all tones are leveled out, and you just kind of got to focus on the day ahead.
Along those lines, I'm curious if there's any ways that you felt the outside perception of this program change as compared to where you were.
Yeah, that's one that's easy to see, and something I've been really guarded against. For me, I've always kind of tried to, as a head coach, I think you got to be ahead of where you're at, and I kind of had a steady crescendo. I knew a lot of our guys were up for national awards. I know that we, received votes to be ranked, right? Like, we didn't get ranked, but we beat teams that were ranked, right? So I kind of made note of all of that. Toledo, we refer to them, they're the MAC champs, all right? Like, there's no denying what they've done and what they've been able to do in college football has been pretty impressive. So I'm balancing that all the time, but the part that we, as coaches, got to be aware of now is just the immediate access to our players have to letting people tell them how good they are, right? Like Johnny Newton's doing a podcast for the Heisman, right? And I'm like, holy cow, right? Like, when Bret came to me with that, I'm like, all right, we got a D lineman, it's in the Heisman race, right? Like, so some of these things are new chartered waters. I've had some pretty good D linemen. I've never had one in the Heisman race before the year started, right? So like whether there's reality to that or not is reality to them. They called and asked, right? So I'm very guarded about what our guys are hearing and making them understand. Like, I keep calling them wish list, not watch list, right? Like, they wish you to be good. I wish you to be good. You wish yourself to be good, but really what you do is going to determine how well you get rewarded. So I think we got a hungry football team. I think we got a group of guys that really want to work. I think they understand the ability to be humble is a really good trait. Last year we were a 7-1 team that, finished the year 1-4, and there are a lot of different things that probably factored into that. But we got to keep the edge that we're in every game. We got to have not one chip on our shoulder, but two, and that's how we got to play.
How do you feel about the staff you put together over the 8 months? You guys have all been together leading into the season.
Yeah, just super excited. The 4 new guys that we brought in, I think it's been pretty seamless just how they fit into our building. But each one's uniquely different. Charlie and Antonio on both sides of the ball. One I've known since he's been 16 years old, and one I've known for, indirectly for 4, 5, 6 years. But both of them have had a huge impact in our room offensively. Thad and Dish are both very gifted in what they do. Obviously, Dish has the aspect of being a special teams coordinator, so the value he brings, like I said, just he's been at Georgia, he's been at Tulane with great success last year. He called every one of those reps, right? He actually worked with Coach Candle at Toledo for 4 years, right? So he's got some inside knowledge there of how things happen there. But to see that special teams effect here would be kind of cool. And then Aaron to be the new role as a coordinator, right? I think, start off a game like this with a quarterback that's as dynamic as he is and as accurate as he is as a thrower, as efficient he is as a play caller. It's pretty impressive to to watch him put together a game plan, see where it's at. But on the flip side of it, like a lot of support staff, we've really done some nice things in recruiting. So even though that doesn't show up immediately on game day, it shows up eventually. Like I think our recruiting department with Pat Embleton, in conjunction with Pearson and Jay Kaiser, and we've added a couple other guys in that room, has been very impressive. This morning, knocking on my door at 7:30 this morning with Jimmy Leonard, right? Like just to hear some things that he saw last week during the course. He's just got eyes from above, right? He's not on the grass, and it's very valuable to have some thoughts come out of his mind on offense, defense, special teams, as well as opponent preparation. So really a fun time in our building, like to be in the Smith Center every day. It's literally probably one of the most enjoyable atmospheres I've ever been in as a head coach. Like just really a lot of fun. Now we haven't lost a game, right? So everybody's happy. But it's just a really cool building to be in.
With Jordan out, you're down to 4 running backs.
Yeah.
I know you lost the walk-on kid as well.
Mm-hmm.
In an emergency situation, God forbid, you have to go deeper. Do you have an emergency tailback? I mean, I know Johnny and Keith will want to do it, but
Fidanzo, we moved Fidanzo, who has been there the last 2 years since I've been here. I really like Nick and what he's brought. And actually last year during fall camp, he jumped out at one scrimmage, and that's why it drove me to move him, right? I didn't need him to be our 5th, 6th string running back. I thought, I get him on the field. So we tried him in the spring, a little bit of safety and linebacker. And then literally before Jordan ever happened, I had gone to Nick and just said, hey, like, I think this might be better for you to come back over here, get you involved in special teams. And he was more than open to it. And then he literally got in that last scrimmage and did really, really well. So in my career, I've never had to really go past the 3rd or 4th guy. But to have a 5th guy in that capacity, if we we have several other guys that have played running back besides Johnny and Keith that could probably do it on deep. For us, Jaheim Clark is a freshman that's going to play for us on defense, but he's given us some great reps because he kind of simulates athletically some of the things you see Finn do. We have probably on the offense side of the ball, offensive line, we won't have a true freshman, but really at running back, you have 2 freshmen, Caden Fagan and Aiden Lawfrey. And then at wide receiver, 3 guys, Malik Elzy, Kanari Welcher, and Sean Miller. Those 5 guys are pretty much involved in the game plan that have never taken a snap here at Illinois. And then obviously, on the defense side of the ball up front, Jeremiah Warren at outside backer, Mason Moragan at inside linebacker, James Kreutz at safety, Mac Rosetich, Nicario Harper, Clayton Bush, Demetrius Hill will all get reps. They're taking their first snap on the perimeter. Jaheim Clark, Sabor, Prince Ford, and Zach Toby. There's a number of guys that we've recruited over the last few years that are going to be heavily involved in a Big Ten football game. I know it's they're coming from the MAC, but this is a Big Ten football game in our stadium that we gotta be ready to play in, and to have that environment for our guys and to see them play is going to be very rewarding.